here. All right, well, welcome. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day, like I said, to join us. We can discuss some of those issues surrounding Senate Bill 200 that apply specifically to secondary administrators. I know there's a lot of myths out there, a lot of questions, and so hopefully through this avenue I'll be able to answer some of those for you. And I will periodically stop and open up the questioning for you as I cover some topics so that you have some opportunity, and not just at the end, but as we go. But if you think of one, write it down, and please do participate. So the first thing that we want to talk about is going to be the background history. How did we get where we are right now with Senate Bill 200? What the requirements are that are outlined in that bill, funding and computer science initiatives that we have in place right now and moving forward. What does this look like as far as implementation in the schools? A suggested pathway for computer science. There's been some updates to our teacher licensing endorsements, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then I'm going to provide you with some resources that you can utilize with your teachers. And then we're going to have a brief talk about the technology standards that are up for revision this year. Currently, we're using the 2010 standards, so those are going to have to be refreshed just a little bit. And then I'll leave with my contact information and any questions, follow-up questions that haven't already been answered. So that's kind of how we'll go through this. So a little bit of background history. In 2015, the K-12 Computer Science Framework was developed. That was a national movement to have some sort of consistent basis and platform that could inform standards instruction and standards creation from the different states in the nation. So that's what that is. And we had a team from Nevada who helped on this K-12 computer science framework as reviewers. So it's nice to know that Nevada has been part of this process from the very beginning, which is great to hear for our state. In 2016, the framework was published and made available to everyone, and you can Google that and find that out there. Also in 2016, Nevada joined the ESEP Alliance, Expanding Computing Education Pathways, and this group is made up from members throughout the different states that are doing the same thing we are, broadening computer science education throughout their different states. And so we have these resources available to us to help us as we grow and develop these programs and these initiatives. In May of last year, the Department of Ed created a computer science position in the Office of Standards Instructional Support. That is what I currently hold, so that we could have a point person who could help with the processing of new standards in this direction that the bill required, as well as helping with these initiatives and moving them forward. Also last year in June was when the bill was actually signed by Governor Sandoval and put into place, put into law. In July, this computer science team, this task force that I mentioned earlier that had met in 2015, under this new law now became the Computer Science Subcommittee under the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. Also in July, the National CSTA, Computer Science Teachers Association standards were announced. And those national standards were built off of that K-12 framework that had already been developed and published in the previous year. In August of last year, the Nevada K-12 computer science standards were developed. And again, those were built off of the national CSTA standards. So you can see how the framework informed national standards, which is informing the state standards. We also, let's see, in September of last year, professional development began for our computer science discoveries course that's at the middle school, and our computer science principles course, which is at the high school. And that professional development has been organized through our RPDP programs. In December of last year, our fiscal year of 18 funding allocation, that is part of Senate Bill 200, that process began. In January of this year, our computer science standards were approved through the state board. And then in March, last month, the COPS workshop, the Commission on Professional Standards, approved changes for the computer science endorsements. So that's moving forward in the process. And then finally, this month, began the funding allocation process for FY19. And so we have that next allocation coming through. All right, so our mission for computer science education in Nevada is to basically engage our students, all students, with rigorous computer science education, no matter what part of the state they are in, whether they are in charter, if they're in elementary, middle, high school, whether they are male or female, if they have disabilities, it's for all students. We've had computer science in the state at the secondary level in high school primarily under the CTE pathway for some time. And especially with like AP courses, usually you are recommended to go into those courses. And the computer science AP principles course is very different in that is a computer science course for all students. So it's not only by teacher recommendation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the pathways and stuff. But basically, we want to prepare our students in Nevada for their post-secondary experiences. And we all know that technology and computer science and the way we are digitally driven is not going to go away. It's only going to increase. So our students need to be not just consumers of this technology, that they have these devices, but creators of it and understand the processes behind it. Our vision is that they're informed, that they can have solid discussions on computer science issues, that they develop as creators, learners of the CS knowledge and artifacts, and that they understand the role of computing around them. I've used the example that they can Snapchat on their phones, but they have no idea that how that picture gets over to the next person that they've sent it to in their group, or the mere fact that it does not go away completely like they think it does. So they just need to have a better understanding of the role of computing in the world around them, and how to express themselves in other subject areas and interests, because again, computer science particularly, and technology in general, are interwoven in all of these areas. So we always hear, oh, we're doing this because robots are going to be replacing all jobs. They're not going to be replacing all jobs, but they will be replacing most jobs in the future. I mean, if we're looking at a kindergartner who will be graduating in, 2030, whatever it is, their world is going to look vastly different. Their job opportunities, the skill sets that they need, will be considerably different than what we envision right now. So we can't really guarantee on what job skills that they need to have. We do know that studies have shown that on some level routine, repetitive, and predictable jobs will disappear because those can be easily replaced by technology. But we do feel strongly that if our students have this foundation in computer science today in their education, that they will be vastly better prepared for the future and what's happening in our country and the nation, in the world, basically. We'll be better prepared. So, Senate Bill 200. I have a couple links here, and I'll make this available on the STEM Hub site that I'm going to talk about in a minute after we're done with our sessions. And I have on the first link is Senate Bill 200 on the legislative site, so that's the complete bill. The second link is on the department site, and that is an overview of Senate Bill 200 broken down by section. And then the third link is on the STEM Hub website, which breaks it down by effective date. So I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So on the department site, we have our standards and instructional support, academic standards, computer science pages. There's a little bit of background on that. The link over here, this is to the legislative site that has the full bill, if you'd like to read that. And then down below here, I have a link that talks about the bill in sections. Okay, so if you want just a real quick overview that way. When I talk about the links by effective date, I have it over here on the Nevada STEM Hub site. So stemhub.nv.gov/cs4nv. And on the main menu, I have the link here, CS4NV, and there's some other links down here. So on the state advocacy page, we have a complete outline of the bill by effective date. So for example, effective date last summer, July 1st, these were the things that came into place. First one, a student may count the following courses for a fourth-year math or third-year science graduation requirement. That was written in the bill and effective last July. Those courses are an AP Computer Science course, a CTE Computer Science course, or a computer science course from an approved community college or university. But before they can count this upon graduation, they must have already passed their math and science courses over the course of their high school that required an EOC, end of course exam. So that's very important. In other words, if they haven't passed algebra and geometry, for example, they should not be counting AP Computer Science as another fourth math credit. Okay. The second item, computer science must count as a math or science credit towards the requirements for the Millennium Scholarship. So counselors, particularly when they're looking at credits and if students qualify for the Millennium, as of last July, they must count computer science as math or science. Also, I mentioned that subcommittee effective July 1st of last year. That's when that came into place. There's a link there to the board members if you'd like to see who the members are. Excuse me. And then our fiscal year 18 appropriations that went out. You can see the breakdown there. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Hold on one second. Okay. You can see the breakdown there for Clark and Washoe, and then the rurals and charters. The rurals and charters are sharing this funding. Is based on a non-competitive grant allocation. And this was the total amount that they were allocated. You can see in this case a lot of our rural districts joined in consortiums, and then were allotted that funding accordingly. And then we have our districts that applied, received funding based on what their needs were, or what the breakdown of the allocation was. Okay. And then one Important point, all schools that are under the same chartered name are deemed as one entity, just so it's more in alignment with what the districts are doing with their various schools. Okay. Hi, Mary Kay, welcome. Okay, so let me get back here. I'll talk more about that in a minute. All right, so I talked about the effective dates, and I'll go into more detail in a minute. So also on there are our computer science standards. They are, there's a full-length version. Let me go back over there on the STEMhub site. Down here, not there, on the educators page. So if I go up here to educators, you'll see I've got professional development there for all the different levels, the new licensing requirements, and then the computer science standards I mentioned. There's a link to the full version. And what that full version has is connections to the other Nevada academic content standards. So the way the standards are written is we have by grade level, K through 5, and then under each of those, they have the connections to math, ELA, science, and social studies. So particularly in the elementary grade levels where those teachers teach all subjects in the one class, this is very helpful for them to link what they're already teaching to the computer science standards. When you get to secondary, with the middle and the high school, they go into grade bands. So you've got 6 through 8, and you've got the 9 through 12. The condensed version is without the connections included, and it's in a table where you can see the progression of standards across the grade levels. Okay, and both of them say propose still until they complete the regulatory process, which is going before the State Board for the regulations on June 7th, I believe it is. Okay, and then I'll remove the proposed draft, and it will be the final version. While I'm on here, let me go back to, I'll give you like a little overview of the other things coming up. So what's coming up for this current year, July 1st, in the bill, really does affect secondary primarily. So the first one here, before beginning 6th grade, this is for our elementary folks. All students are required to receive instruction in computer education and technology. So primarily what's been happening, that half credit high school course that's typically taught in middle school will now be taught in a basic format in the elementary grade level, so that they'll have a foundation of technology skills, productivity tools, and what have you, and including the computer science. And I'll explain computer education and technology and how those two go together in just a couple of slides. But the importance of this, just some background knowledge for you secondary admin folks, that what the lawmakers were seeing is that there's more and more testing happening at the elementary level. And is it, the questions were being asked, are we testing our young people on their actual subject matter content knowledge, or on whether or not they can use the computer properly? And so they felt the need that we need to have this pushed down earlier for these folks. All right, so then the second one, the half-credit high school graduation requirement must contain 50% of productivity tool instruction that we currently have, the word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, etc., and 50% computer science and computational thinking. So that begins July 1st of this year. So that would be a considerable change for our teachers who are currently teaching the computer literacy I believe it is called use of computers is what it says in our regulations, but it's primarily computer literacy. Typically you're typing Word, Excel, Google Docs, and so forth. That is now just going to be 50% of what the class is, and then the other 50% will be the computer science and computational thinking component that needs to be brought in. So that will be a shift for your teachers who teach that. Appropriations for this coming year, FY19, Clark has $800,000, Washoe has $200,000, and now the rural charters have $400,000, so it increased. Also effective, computer science and computer education and technology professional development has to occur, and that's already been occurring. Effective this July also adds computer science computational thinking to the computer education technology standards. And again, I have a slide that will explain why we're adding this to this and what are these. And then also the department, in consultation with this subcommittee I spoke about, will review all instruction and make recommendations to the Nevada State Board. So in other words, if there's curriculum that a district would like to use, then they need to go through the proper procedure to put in the paperwork and get that submitted to the state so that we can review the instruction and the curriculum, make sure it's in alignment with the standards and so forth, and then make recommendations to the state board for approval. Currently, the computer science curriculum that the state board has approved to date is the code.org curriculum, CS Fundamentals for elementary, CS Discoveries for middle, and CS Principles for the high school. And like I said, if there's other curriculum that districts should choose to, or charter should choose to purchase, then just go through the process to make sure that it's aligned with the standards. Effective in 2020, State Board will approve computer science course that can count towards college admissions as a third-year science and fourth-year math beyond Algebra 2. Okay, so NSHE institution, the higher ed institution, will have to recognize the CS credit to meet admission qualifications for either math or science at that time. However, if a student is going for the STEM seal at graduation, however, they cannot substitute computer science for a higher math class. They need to take that calculus or whatever that is available for them, that higher math class. So perhaps that student would consider substituting the course for their third year science, for example. Okay, but that's 2020. That gives our higher ed institutions an opportunity to prepare for that. And then finally in 2022, all public high schools, charter schools, and university schools for profoundly gifted students must offer a state board approved computer science course. This may be an online offering. So this will be a mandate effective 2022 that this take place. Also, in that same year, this is also effective. All of the schools mentioned above, right here, must also make efforts to increase enrollment of girls, students with disabilities, and underrepresented minorities in the field of computer science as identified by the state board. Okay, so those two kind of go hand in hand. Not only do you need to offer that course, but you need to make efforts to increase the enrollment for those groups. And then finally in 2022, the department, in consultation with that subcommittee, will review each course in computer science that is submitted to the state board for approval. So just again, making sure it's in alignment with the state standards. Before I go any further, are there any questions regarding anything with the bill and the effective dates that I have mentioned? And please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute your mic and go ahead and ask those questions.
Cindy, this is Leanne.
Hi, Leanne.
Question about, that we, like here in Carson City, I know, 7th grade is where we are meeting that high school graduation requirement. Do you see with all of these new standards, the possibility of us needing to move that back to the high school in order to meet those high school standards? Because it seems like now we're going to have to be doing the middle school and probably some of the high school standards in order, to continue to meet the requirements for that graduation requirement.
Great question, Leanne. Thank you for asking that. The answer is no. You can still keep that course at the middle school level. I'm going to click on this other link here that explains that very thing. Computer Science and Applications is going to be the new name for that half-credit course. So the changes proposed currently, it's formally called Use of Computers or Computer Literacy. We hear it entitled as well. There'll be a name change to Computer Science and Applications. That will be in line with the content that's being taught, and then as well as the licensing that's required for it. It needs to include these following concepts: computer applications, digital citizenship, and then computer science and computational thinking. The the percentage recommended by the subcommittee to the state board is 50% computer science and computational thinking, and then the other 50% would be the productivity tools. What this states here for the NAC 389-664, it will remain that this course of study can still be taught during 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. And if the student has taken this in middle school, they are not to take it again in high school. Okay, so it should count. If they've had it in middle school, it should count on their transcript. They they should not take it again in high school. So to better help answer your question, Leanne, so here we have these standards from the computer science, K-12 computer science standards, then we have our ed tech standards, right, that we've currently been working off. We've got CSTA and ISTE. And I think I have a slide of this actually. Let me see if I can go to it really quickly. Yes, I do, right here. Okay, so this is what we have here. We have when the bill talks about Nevada Computer Education and Technology and having CS and CT, Computer Science and Computer Technology, or Computer Science and Computational Thinking added to the Computer Education Technology. What it did basically was add this little elbow over here. So we have our computer science standards are now part of the Computer Education and Technology subject area, where we already had our technology standards. So we have these two sets of standards. That would be way too much to teach all together at one time in this one little semester course. So what we have our task force, our subcommittee will be pulling standards from both and putting them together. And then the courses that your district will then build out or revise will be built off of those standards. Okay, so there'll be like a subset of the two standards. And we're going to make sure, they have to be primarily high school standards because it's a high school course. So if we were ever to be audited at the state level, we have to show that those are high school standards that are being taught there. So that's kind of a given. However, we will be incorporating middle school standards on the computer science level for continuity and clarity. So we'll build that into that. Okay, does that help answer your question? Yes. Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for asking that. Anyone else have any other questions? Okay. So let me go on, and we can always go back to that if we need to. So the five major concepts in the new computer science K-12 standards are algorithms of programming, computing systems, data and analysis, impacts of computing, and networks and the internet. I hear a lot that folks are like, oh, well, it's all about coding. It's really not all about coding, actually. It's foundational skills of computer science, as you can see, how the networks are working, how the internet works, the impacts societally of computing in general, data. We have such big data that's coming in these days in droves. How do we analyze that? How do we visualize that in a proper manner that decisions can be made from that data? So there's a lot going into the standards for computer science than simply programming. I usually get this question, well, what is computer science? I thought we already had it. That's what this half-credit course is. And so hopefully this slide will make that distinction, that computer science is understanding why and how computers work, creating programs rather than just using them. So it's the actual application and foundation of what's going on under the hood, if you will. So there's some examples up there. Programming an app, a game, of course, interactive data visualizations, algorithms behind your online dating, simulating disease spread, building a computer system, computing's impact on society. So those all fall under computer science. What it's not is using computers to perform everyday tasks. That's the use of technology. Keyboarding, using the internet for research, creating a PowerPoint, editing a photo or movie, or using apps that are created by other people. That's not computer science. That's the use of technology. These both go hand in hand, but they're definitely not the same. And I showed you this, how those two are in alignment with computer education. So where are we at with this half-credit graduation course? I showed you those two changes on the STEMhub site. It's going to the superintendent's workshop, and that will happen early May, and then it's going to go before the state board in June. These are the proposed changes. So for 389-664, use of computers will now be called computer science and applications, like I said, and then we're going to add the course computer science and applications must include 50% of computer science and computational thinking instruction. 389-450, again, updates the name and then includes the concepts that need to be part of this this course. The applications instruction, or what I like to call the productivity tools, and this would include your Google Apps for Education as well. Digital citizenship, which kind of bridges both areas, so that could be taught in both the application side of things and in the computer science and computational thinking side, so that kind of overlaps on both. All right, this again is a slide kind of showing the breakdown. Those numbers are on the STEMhub site as well for your FY18 grant allocation. For this FY19, this is the timeline going on right now. You can see the grant application. It's been posted up on the department's website on the grants page. So you can kind of get a feel for what your district leaders are looking at and analyzing when they are putting together their grant package for approval. But I'll tell you basically what I'm looking for. So say you have some needs at your school and you go to your district person and say, in order to implement the half credit course, for example, with the changes that I'm going to need X, Y, Z, they are putting together their plan of how they want to expand computer science education in the district. And each district has their own different plan, and each charter has their different plan. But the one thing I am looking for, because as you can see on this bill, there is a strong component of professional development for teachers and administrators and counselors. So if you're simply going to ask for equipment, then with no professional development in computer science and computational thinking for your teachers or in CS principles or so forth, then it won't be denied it will be denied because this is not a technology grant per se. It is computer science with strong emphasis on professional development. So that needs to be part of the complete package. And when I say professional development, I don't mean on how to use the software or the computer devices themselves, but actually how do I implement as a teacher computer science and computational thinking in the classroom. So there needs to be a component there. But this is the timeline. It opened March 30th. It closes on the end of this month. And then it goes through the process. Districts can begin submitting their funding request for approval on June 1st so that we can get out everything in alignment. Their budgets can be approved and their plans, because sometimes there's a lot of back and forth on that to get it tweaked just right. So that gives some time there. And then they're ready to go July 1st for their approved expenditures to start purchasing things. So hopefully you can get your items in your classrooms very quickly. The end of the FY19 allocation period is on June 30th. Okay, so on the STEMhub site that I just showed you, on the educators page, there's PD that's currently available for your teachers. I'll go back to that in a second. Proposed licensing endorsement requirements, I'll talk about that as well, and I already did talk about the standards. So let's go back over here to our educator page. Okay, so for middle school, there are trainings currently going on right now for computer science discoveries. And what it is there is a week-long training in the summer, and then 4 follow-up trainings, and this is also the same for the high school for CS principals. Follow-up trainings each quarter, and then they are completely trained for CS discoveries. When it comes to licensing and for teaching the discoveries course only, they do not need to have the licensing endorsements that I will talk about in just a minute. As long as you can prove that the teacher took this full training, so it's the whole year by the time you're done, the summer workshop and the 4-day quarterly workshops, they receive a certificate from RPDP. They also have the opportunity to get credit for this, and I'll show you which course this would apply for on the endorsements. And then they can upload that into the new online licensing system that the department has, and then that would be proof for administrators, for the department, etc., that a teacher is qualified to teach that course. Okay, and then there's an additional training there. At the high school level, there's training for computer science principles. Now this is an AP course, and it talks about the internet, big data and privacy, programming and algorithms, and so forth. It has the same structure that the Discoveries has for the middle school. You got the 1 week free training and then a 4-day follow-up quarterly workshops. Now, this is not your normal AP course, okay? I can't stress this enough. Typically, what we've done traditionally is teachers are recommended to put a student in an AP biology course, for example. This course, the AP Computer Science Principles course, is the foundational skill set of computer science and the concepts for all students. So remember we talked about the for all, whether you have a specific interest in it or not. I mean, this is a foundation that all students should have moving forward in whatever career path or post-secondary path that they have. So please make sure that your counselors know that they don't need to just, we don't want them to just send those students who are qualified into this AP course. It's not that kind. This is a completely different entity altogether. This is your for all course. Okay, and there's also summer computer science program at UNLV. UTeach has another opportunity this summer, and then NICER training. So let's talk about this licensing requirement changes. Before I get into these, I will say that if you are currently already teaching these courses, you do not need to be relicensed. Okay, you do not need a new endorsement. So currently there are 3 on the books. We are reducing it down to 2. So the first one would be an endorsement to teach computer science and applications. Notice the name change ties in with the endorsement name. For a new teacher who's never taught this half-credit course before, they would need to get 3 semester hours of coursework in methods for teaching computer science, 3 semester hours in a course of study on computer science concepts, and the courses that I just mentioned, the discoveries and the CS principles training through RPDP, would qualify for this concepts course if they go through and get the semester hours. And then finally, 3 semester hours in a course on methods to teach computer applications. Okay. And then for the advanced computer science course, for those who want to go on to teach the CTE pathway, for example, they would need to have the methods, the concepts, so you can see that they are layered on, built upon those other 2 requirements in the previous endorsement, and then 2 additional courses in computer programming languages. Or they may just simply pass the praxis exam in computer science that will become available shortly. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this licensing or any of the professional development training? All right. All right, so a suggested computer science pathway at the secondary level. As you can see, K through 5, we've got the computer science standards they have for each of their grade level that build upon each other. Then you get into 6th grade. They've got, perhaps, I know some of you are teaching it at the 7th grade level, some not till the 9th grade level. The majority are teaching the computer science and applications, also known as the current computer literacy, in the 6th grade level. So you could have that, then you could have your discoveries or an equivalent course perhaps at 7th and 8th grade, if you like. Another suggested pathway is your AP Computer Science Principles. That is being taught at a freshman level, for example, and then they could go right into the CTE pathway, Computer Science 2, Level 3, which is the Computer Science A course, and then Advanced Studies. And then I have a note here that your CS Principles course may satisfy the Senate Bill 200 Section 2 requirement that high schools offer a computer science course. So that would satisfy that requirement. Any questions on the pathway suggested? All right, on to the resources then. So we have a Computer Science Teachers Association brand new chapter. They just started in our state, so that's very exciting. You can see the board members listed right there. This is free membership to all folks in our state. They have mentoring for your teachers. They have regularly meetings and resources. They share best practices, conferences, and so forth. So this would be a very good resource for your teachers to have. And I encourage admin to join as well so you know what's happening. I showed you the Nevada STEM Hub website with our CS4NV information. There's a place where you can do an email sign up so that you can get regular information about the changes, because things are changing very quickly and constantly in this subject area in our state. So this would be a way to stay up on top of those and always know what's happening. On the department site, we have information on computer science. The subcommittee members are listed there. There's a frequently asked questions sheet that is a great resource. Perhaps you didn't think of this question, but once you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I should have known that. So please check that out. There's a calendar of events. Guidance documents will be there on Senate Bill 200, as well as this half-credit course. Licensing is up there as well. And then also the Instructional Materials Resource Center. That is going to have a section built out for computer science as we move forward as well. So there'll be a lot of resources for your teachers there. All right. ISTE, you're familiar with, has resources for computational thinking and computer science. This is a book on computational thinking and coding for every student that would be probably most helpful at the middle school level. So that might be an option for you as well. And then finally, we've got a resource coming up soon here in June. It's our Nevada Computer Science Summit. We are going to be talking about all of the changes that are happening, as well as providing resources. For example, high schools are being asked to offer computer science and increase the enrollment in females and underrepresented demographics and those with disability. Well, can we have some help and resources on how to do that? So there'll be a session dedicated to that. What we're having is the districts put together a team of individuals to come from superintendents, district leads, down to elementary, middle, high school admin, elementary, middle, high school teachers, classroom teachers, and counselor to participate in this. And you're able to use your FY18 funds that your district or charter had to attend. So please reach out to your district folks if you want to get more information about being on that team. Registration ends or closes on May 11th, so there's some time sensitivity there. And then also, just to let you know what's coming down the pike here, we have currently our K-12 computer and technology standards were from 2010, so it's time for them to be refreshed a bit. ISTE has updated their standards for students as of 2016, and their educators' standards will be updated this fall as well. So we're going to be, we got approval to start revising those standards, so we'll start that process very shortly. So if you would like to be part of that team, please let us know. Share that with your colleagues so that we can get that as robust as we can. And again, fiscal year 19 funding allocations can be used for travel or whatever you need for this, because it's considered professional development. All right, so that is what I have provided for you for our overview on Senate Bill 200 and all of the changes. Do you have any lingering questions, concerns with implementation of this? Or any other topics that you'd like to see addressed in the future that would help you folks out. Go ahead and either type it in the chat or unmute your microphone and go ahead and speak.
Cindy, this is Leanne. I have another question.
Sure.
In regards to one of the resources that you shared on the STEM Hub website under the PD middle school, I know 2 of our middle school teachers had registered for that summer workshop, one in Reno and one actually in Hayward, California, because she's not available during the time that the one in Reno is being offered. Are they automatically then registered for those 4 one-day workshops, or is that something I need to have them follow up with?
No, they're automatically enrolled in the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and then I had a question. Do you get a copy of our slides from today? Absolutely. I am going to post them on the Nevada STEM Hub site that I showed earlier, stemhub.nv.gov/csfornv, and then also have the recording so that you folks can go back and listen to it. Can you repeat the CTE track? Russell, I'm not sure what you mean. Do you want me to go back over the licensing for it, or? You can go ahead and speak, Russell, if you want to verbalize that question. Mary Kay, you're welcome. What is the course sequence with AP-CSP for CTE? Okay, so let me go back to this slide, I think is what you mean. Is it this one right here? Okay, so currently CTE is going through their rewrite of, or they will begin shortly, probably in the fall. They'll do a rewrite of their pathway and their standards so that they can be in alignment with the computer science standards. Because right now the principal course is at the 2nd level, which as you can see, as we've discussed today, that principles is more of a foundational level course. So that's why it's going to be counted for the 1st level. So it is that CS for all component, but it is also that gateway entry into the CTE pathway for any students that want to continue on in that, but they don't have to. But yeah, that's kind of how this would look. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, so in some middle schools, they take computer literacy, the old computer literacy in 6th grade. Yes, a lot of middle schools do that. Other than that, students are offered media classes and elective. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So so in this middle school level, say they have the old computer literacy, the new computer science applications in 6th grade. Then they could take your media course or computer science discoveries or something along those lines. One thing I'd like to say is we have our computer science standards for our grade bands 6 through 8. And I will tell you that with the computer science and applications half-credit course being 50%, so we're talking 9 weeks, right? There's no way to cover all of those 6th through 8th grade, for example, and actually should be high school standards in that 9-week course. So you should be considering and thinking about how can I, in your case, Juliana, for middle school, how can I incorporate those 6th through 8th grade computer science standards in some manner in another course? Like Discoveries will cover it, but if you're going to build out your own course, then how would you infuse those standards and make sure that they're covered in that course, right? And then again, if you're going to hit most of your 912 standards in the principles course, and then the higher advanced ones will be in the CTE course, okay? Take out our offer to, oh, okay. All right, Russell, can AP-CSP be standalone and not count against CTE completer? Yeah, you don't have to, yeah, they are looking at that. Because there's a couple of things, which is why the CTE department hasn't just rushed to change their course sequence, because they need to look at how it affects funding, right? And you don't really need any additional funding for your principles course, especially if you're using code.org. It's online, it's free. There are no additional costs with that. But they want to make sure that they are doing their allocations appropriately and counting the students that are in the pathway towards their funding allocations. So they're looking at a lot of those items. But yeah, it won't count against a completer. They're not going to look at it and say, oh, well, we had, for example, one of our schools in Clark County has all 9th grade students take CS principles, regardless of what pathway they're going to after that. So CTE is not going to look at that and say, well, you had last year, 1,200 students took AP Computer Science, but your CTE Computer Science completers were only, 50 or whatever. They're not going to hold that against them at all. They're going to have to put some procedures in place, but they do understand the situation, yes. And then another consideration that they have is they currently have the end of course exam in place that has one more cycle to go through, and so then they'll rewrite the standards after that. So this whole process is a process. So it's in motion, and we be flexible over the course of the next year or two as things start to work their way out and they start to align and connect. So your question is AP Computer Science A, the completer? Yes, that's the 3rd year course, correct. Great questions. Any others? You're welcome. No questions? Okay. Well, again, I want to put up my slide that if you need to reach me at any time, if you have any further questions, any concerns you didn't think about, you've looked at the FAQ document and it sparked another question, then please reach out to me. I'm here as a resource to all of you. I will be meeting in May with the district curriculum directors. And so if there are any questions or concerns or topics that you would like me to bring forward from the field, I'll be happy to do that. Just shoot me a quick email and I'll do that. So, but most importantly, just know that I'm a resource for you. Oh, you're very welcome. It's been my pleasure to share these things with you. I wish I could get it out to everyone. So please tell your colleagues. Okay, and again, let me know if you need anything. That's what I'm here for, okay? All right, thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is. And have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Juliana.